Well, the war is definitely escalating, and the conflict is mostly in northern Israel still, as well as in southern Lebanon, both sides striking at one another. And we're seeing an escalation because as Israel strikes more Hezbollah targets, Hezbollah expands the radius and the range of its rocket attacks into Israel. We saw on Sunday, for example, reaching already the outskirts of Haifa, which is one of the main population centers, striking inside neighborhoods, causing damage to homes and cars and wounding even people. So we're starting to see more attacks on the Israeli home front in places that have not been evacuated of their residents. And Israel's retaliating. Not only was there the pager attack of last week, which was attributed to Israel, but ever since then, Israel has been striking at Hezbollah targets throughout mostly southern Lebanon. Just this morning on Monday, taking out dozens of targets inside homes where it said that Hezbollah kept some of its longer range cruise missiles and artillery rockets that could be used for precision guided strikes against Israel. The IDF then releasing a video showing how the rockets are stored inside homes, sometimes on trucks that just pull out from an underground parking lot and are able to launch right away with a ready launcher and a rocket already installed on its back, as well as just rocket launchers inside homes where they can pull back a retractable roof and also attack. So I think what we're starting to see is more of Israeli escalation and aggression, all aimed essentially at trying to get Hezbollah to de-escalate. So Israel gradually escalates to try to get Hezbollah to de-escalate. We have to remember is that for 11 months, Israel pretty much gave Hezbollah carte blanche to attack, right? And it did. It attacked aggressively since October 8th, the day after the Hamas attack from Gaza on October 7th. And it attacked every single day with rockets and drones and anti-tank missiles, forcing Israel to evacuate 60,000 of its residents. To teach Hezbollah a different lesson is not something that can happen overnight. But Israel is trying, because Israel had three options in front of it. One was keep the status quo the way it is, allow Hezbollah to continue to attack. Israel attacks, tries to keep it contained, and we just keep moving as we have been. That was seen as intolerable because people have to be able to go back to their homes, and we have to get Hezbollah to stop attacking Israel. The second option was to go to an all-out war. An all-out war would mean devastation, first and foremost, to Lebanon. Israel would have to destroy large swaths of Lebanon because of the way Hezbollah keeps its terrorist infrastructure inside civilian homes and hospitals and schools and airports, etc. And the world doesn't want Israel to have to do that. And Israel would face really unprecedented devastation of its own in the home front because Hezbollah does have the ability to fire thousands of rockets, long range, all throughout the country in any given day until that capability is degraded by Israel. That would take some time. So Israel had that option, decided not to go with that option, likely because it doesn't want to see that devastation in its home front, and it also doesn't want a regional war, which the Americans have been urging it to avoid. So it's chosen the third option. The third option is one where you gradually escalate. So we saw the pager attack. We saw, which took out communications and wounded thousands of fighters of Hezbollah at the same time. Then we saw attacks on Hezbollah rocket launchers. Then we saw more attacks against Hezbollah rocket launchers, and we saw the elimination of top Hezbollah officials. Every move that Israel makes, Hezbollah responds, and vice versa. The question is, can this escalation by Israel give Hezbollah, as you said, make them get the memo? They better stop. I'm a bit skeptical because I think it will be hard for Hezbollah to come to a complete stop in its rocket fire. Now, it might happen, but it also might not. And if it doesn't, where does that road lead us? And that road could lead us to that all-out war that everyone has been trying to avoid. Listen, a ground offensive by the IDF would be something that will take some time. It will not be the first move that Israel makes. Firstly, there's a number of reasons. Number one is that you want to eliminate as much of the capability from the air without endangering your soldiers to begin with, right? We saw that, for example, in Gaza. It took about 3-4 weeks before the IDF, after October 7th, started to really send its ground forces into Gaza. That only took place at the end of October, the beginning of November. So we still haven't seen the Israeli Air Force unleash its full capability against Lebanon. A ground offensive would most likely, first and foremost, have to be in southern Lebanon, where you'd want to push Hezbollah back away from the border so your people would be able to return to their communities. Israeli people would be able to return to their communities along the border with Lebanon. And you would do this to be able to remove the Hezbollah forces that are there and currently threaten those communities with a potential October 7th style invasion. That would come at a later stage. Now, what we've seen is Israel warning residents of homes or buildings where Hezbollah keeps its capabilities to leave those homes. That's one stage, but you could also do something else, which is drop flyers all throughout southern Lebanon, similar to what Israel did in northern Gaza, and say to the people, well, today is, the Monday. By Wednesday or by Thursday, you have to evacuate because we're attacking everything. And anyone who's left behind, we will assume that they are militants, terrorists, and fighters. That's what Israel did in the north of Gaza, and it was effective, pretty much, in removing the vast majority of the civilians. Israel has yet to do that. I would assume that Israel would do that before launching a larger scale offensive on the ground inside southern Lebanon, which could be something that Israel has to do if it is going to push Hezbollah away from the border and create what some in the defense establishment call a buffer zone, a zone along the border with Israel that's about 8, 9, 10 kilometers wide that would prevent any Hezbollah forces from being inside that territory. Israel continues to have to fight with Hamas in Gaza alongside the escalation that we're seeing in Lebanon and in the north. The war in Gaza is not yet over. For the most part, the Israeli military has succeeded in breaking the back of the Hamas military and its capabilities. It's destroyed most of the infrastructure and killed a lot of its people, at least half. But some do remain. Hamas still has infrastructure and capabilities. This is something that takes time. It takes time because there's Gaza above ground and there's Gaza below ground. And Hamas has entrenched itself and is able to survive even these very aggressive Israeli ground and aerial operations and offensives. The north is where Israel has put a big part of its focus, is trying to clear that area out of Hamas. It was also seen as the real power center of Gaza, because that's also where Gaza City is, which is the largest population center in the Gaza Strip. It would mean laying siege, which is basically cutting off that part of Gaza from the rest, trying to prevent any movement of forces from one part of Gaza to the other, and then going door to door, house to house, tunnel to tunnel, and trying to get rid and eradicate the Hamas capabilities and fighters who are still there. What Israel would then potentially do is create checkpoints and some sort of filtration system, if I could call it that, that would enable a inspection and review of anyone who's moving from one part of Gaza to the other to stop any Hamas forces from rebuilding or reconstituting themselves inside those cleared out areas.
There appears to be a disagreement as to the status of Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, whether he is injured, whether his communications have simply broken down. What are your sources telling you? What's your instinct as to where we are with the fate of Sinwar?
Well, I would hope that he's dead, and I would hope that he's no longer among the living. He definitely deserves to be killed and meet the similar fate of what, for example, Osama bin Laden or Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, all of these terrorist chiefs should be killed and made to pay the price for their actions. With that said, the Israeli government and the military is being very cautious. They do not know. It seems from what's happened is there are constantly airstrikes against different tunnels and different potential targets. Israel is always hunting for him, and there are special teams within the Israeli intelligence services whose sole purpose and sole job is to gather every breadcrumb of information about the whereabouts of Yahya Sinwar, where he might be, who he might be with, and to try to hunt him down and eliminate him. What they're saying is that they do not know. And I think that my indication is that that is the truth, right? They don't know if he is alive. They don't know if he's dead. They don't know if he's injured. They don't know if he's been incapacitated, and everything might be fine. And he's just decided for some reason to break off contact for whatever reason. Hamas is sending out some mixed messages, and this is also what's making things a bit complicated to exactly read. They're saying that they have statements from Sinwar that were going to come out. They have recordings or messages or different they want to disseminate some of his ideas, and then they don't come out. So, or they don't spread them. They don't give them out and distribute them. So things are looking a little strange at the moment. Where exactly this will lead, we really have to wait and see, right? What we should remember, though, is that Hamas doesn't usually own up to the loss of its top commanders. We saw this, for example, with Mohammed Def, who was one of the top Hamas commanders who had evaded and proven to be elusive for many years and escaped many assassination attempts, was finally captured in an Israeli strike or was killed in an Israeli airstrike. But Israel wasn't sure if he was dead or just seriously injured. It took a couple of weeks for Israel to get the final verification. So this is something that will take some time.